The vast, cold emptiness of space stretched before the Dajon, a sleek human starship that seemed to breathe with quiet anticipation. Captain Hoon Park stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the holographic displays that flickered with incoming data streams. The ship's interior hummed with a low electric tension that spoke of preparation and precision. Sensors first detected the alien vessels approaching from the outer rim of the solar system. They were massive, biomechanical structures that looked more like living organisms than traditional spacecraft. The Galactic Confederation scouts believed themselves to be untouchable, a sentiment that would soon prove fatally wrong. Hyun Choi, the tactical officer, spoke softly, but with absolute clarity. Her fingers danced across neural interfaces that seemed to respond to her thoughts more than physical touch. Multiple contacts confirmed. Alien fleet composition shows 12 primary vessels with supporting drone squadrons. Park nodded, his hand resting lightly on the command interface. Years of training and preparation had led to this moment. Humanity had been watching, learning, and preparing, while the galaxy looked down on them as a primitive species, the alien. Communication burst came quickly, a typical demand for surrender and submission. Their language translated into a mixture of mathematical codes and hierarchical commands, revealing a civilization that believed in absolute control. They expected humans to cower, to submit, to recognize their supposed galactic superiority. What they didn't understand was the revolution happening within human technology. Dr. Yuna Lee's adaptive AI systems were about to make their first real-world demonstration. Algorithms designed to predict, counter, and neutralize began their silent work. The ship's quantum encrypted network started processing millions of potential scenarios in microseconds, each calculation a potential pathway to victory. Defensive protocols at maximum, Hyun reported. Her voice remained calm, almost detached, as if discussing a routine maintenance check rather than an imminent battle. The first alien energy weapons discharged, brilliant streams of plasma and quantum disruption beams that would have obliterated most known civilizations' defenses. But the Dajon was different. Nano-adaptive shields rippled like liquid metal, absorbing and redirecting the incoming energy. Captain Park watched as the alien commanders must have realized something was wrong. Their weapon systems were being neutralized before they could even complete their attack sequences. The mathematical precision of human technology was turning their sophisticated weaponry into nothing more than expensive light shows. Target their primary communication nodes, Park commanded. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't dramatic. It was a simple instruction delivered with the same calm one might use to order coffee. Hyun's fingers moved. The ship's weapon systems, which looked more like complex computational arrays than traditional cannons, began their work. Precision-targeted quantum disruption signals started eating through the alien fleet's communication networks. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes and 23 seconds. When it was over, 12 alien vessels existed only as expanding clouds of metallic debris. The Dajon didn't have a single scratch. More importantly, humanity had sent a message that would echo through the galaxy. They were not to be underestimated. As the last pieces of alien wreckage drifted past the ships, exterior cameras, Captain Park allowed himself the slightest smile. This was more than a battle. This was a declaration, a statement that would reshape galactic politics forever. Hyun looked up from her station. Mission completed, Captain. Park nodded. The real work was just beginning. In the cold silence of space, the Dajon turned slowly, a silent guardian representing a species that had been waiting, preparing, and was now ready to show the universe exactly what they were capable of doing. The first contact was complete. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived. The research facility looked like nothing special from the outside, a simple white building nestled in a quiet mountain region. Inside, Dr. Yuna Lee worked with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Her fingers moved across holographic displays, creating complex algorithms that seemed to breathe with their own intelligence. The adaptive AI system she had developed was unlike anything the scientific community had ever seen. Where traditional artificial intelligence followed programmed instructions, Her creation could learn, predict, and strategize in real time with unprecedented accuracy. Screens filled with complex mathematical patterns showed something revolutionary. The AI could simulate millions of potential scenarios in fractions of a second, learning from each simulation faster than any human brain could comprehend. It wasn't just a computer program. It was a living, thinking system that understood warfare at a level beyond human limitation. Military commanders who had initially been skeptical now watched with growing amazement. The AI could predict enemy movements with 99.7% accuracy, turning space combat into a mathematical equation that humans could solve perfectly. During test simulations, the system demonstrated abilities that seemed almost supernatural. It could track multiple threat vectors simultaneously, predict potential attack patterns, and develop counter-strategies before human minds could even process the initial threat. Captain Park reviewed the initial test results with Admiral J. Kim. The data was clear. This technology would change everything about space warfare. No longer would human soldiers be limited by human reaction times or human understanding. The AI could think faster, react faster, and strategize more effectively than any biological entity. The Galactic Confederation had no idea what was coming. In one critical demonstration, the AI system analyzed a complex battle scenario that would have taken traditional military strategists weeks to understand. It produced a complete strategic breakdown in less than 3 minutes, identifying 237 potential attack vectors and developing precise counter-strategies for each. Dr. Lee understood the magnitude of her creation. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was a fundamental shift in how warfare would be conducted. The AI could learn from each encounter, adapting and improving with mathematical precision. During a classified military simulation, the AI-controlled defense systems completely neutralized a simulated attack from a force 10 times its size. Traditional military doctrine suggested such a scenario would result in total defeat. The AI turned it into a perfect defensive operation. Yun Choi, who helped develop the system's interface, watched the simulations with a mix of professional pride and scientific wonder. "It's not just predicting," she would explain to her colleagues. "It's understanding. The system doesn't just react, it comprehends." The technology went beyond simple computational power. It represented a new form of intelligence, one that could think strategically, learn instantaneously, and adapt without human emotional limitations. Every simulation, every test made the system stronger, smarter, more precise. Military leaders from around the world gathered to witness the demonstrations. Many came skeptical, believing human experience would always trump technological innovation. They left understanding that everything had changed. The AI's ability to process information wasn't just fast, it was exponential. Each encounter, each simulation added to its understanding. It learned from mistakes faster than any human could, creating a system that improved itself with every single interaction. During one critical test, the AI analyzed a complex battle scenario that would have taken traditional strategists months to understand. It produced a complete strategic breakdown in less than 3 minutes, identifying potential attack vectors and developing precise counter-strategies with mathematical precision. As the tests continued, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity had created something more than a weapon. They had created a new form of strategic intelligence that would reshape how conflicts were understood and conducted. The Galactic Confederation would soon learn that humanity was no longer a species to be overlooked or underestimated. They were about to face an opponent that could think faster, react quicker, and strategize more effectively than anything they had ever encountered. Dr. Yuna Lee looked at her creation with a mix of scientific pride and quiet understanding. This was more than a technological breakthrough. This was the future of warfare, of strategy, of human potential, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Admiral J. Kim understood something most military leaders missed. True victory wasn't about destroying ships. It was about breaking an enemy's spirit. The Galactic Confederation communication network started experiencing strange disruptions. At first, they seemed like normal technical glitches. But these were carefully designed psychological attacks crafted by human strategists. Dr. Yuna Lee had developed communication algorithms that could penetrate alien psychological vulnerabilities with surgical precision. Each message was a weapon more powerful than any physical weapon, targeting cultural fears, social structures, and deep-rooted psychological triggers. The first wave of psychological attacks targeted the alien fleet's communication channels. Precise, calculated messages began appearing across their networks. These weren't simple threats or aggressive communications. They were carefully constructed narratives that undermined the Confederation's entire belief system. Intercepted communications showed growing confusion among alien military ranks. Complex translation algorithms allowed humans to understand and exploit the most subtle emotional triggers of the alien civilization. Where traditional warfare sought physical destruction, these attacks aimed to create internal doubt and confusion. Captain Hoon Park watched the strategy unfold like a complex chess game. Each message was designed to create microscopic cracks in the alien civilization's psychological foundation. They weren't attacking bodies, they were attacking minds. The alien communication networks began to fracture. Commanders questioned their leadership. Lower-ranking military personnel started experiencing unprecedented levels of uncertainty. The psychological attacks were so precise that they seemed to know exactly which emotional buttons to push. One particularly brilliant strategy involved broadcasting historical records that demonstrated the Confederation's past failures. These weren't fabricated. They were carefully selected real events that highlighted institutional weaknesses. Each transmission was a surgical strike against their collective confidence. Hyun Choi managed the communication systems with exceptional skill. She understood that each transmitted signal carried multiple layers of psychological manipulation. The messages weren't just words, they were carefully constructed psychological weapons. The effects became visible quickly. Alien military units started experiencing internal conflicts. Communication protocols broke down. Strategic alignments that had existed for centuries began to crumble from within. What made these attacks particularly devastating was their subtlety. They didn't look like traditional warfare. To an outside observer, nothing seemed dramatically wrong. But inside the Galactic Confederation, trust was systematically being destroyed. Quantum encrypted communication networks allowed humans to inject these psychological triggers with unprecedented precision. Each message was designed to create maximum psychological impact with minimal direct intervention. The alien civilization's hierarchical structure, which had been their greatest strength, now became their most significant weakness. The psychological attacks targeted exactly those communication channels that held their society together. Military units started questioning orders. Leadership began experiencing internal doubts. The carefully constructed social structures that had maintained the Galactic Confederation for centuries were being dismantled without a single physical weapon being fired. Dr. Lee's algorithms could predict psychological responses with mathematical precision. They understood cultural nuances, communication patterns, and emotional triggers at a level that seemed almost supernatural. Captain Park watched the strategy unfold with clinical precision. This wasn't just warfare. This was a complete psychological deconstruction of an entire civilization's communication infrastructure. The Galactic Confederation was experiencing something they had never encountered, an enemy that could destroy them from within, using nothing more than carefully constructed information. Each transmission was a weapon, each message a potential psychological bomb, and humanity was just getting started. The most terrifying aspect of this warfare wasn't its complexity or its precision. It was the calm, calculated manner in which it was being conducted. There was no anger, no emotion, just pure strategic psychological manipulation. As communication networks continued to fracture, one thing became abundantly clear. The human approach to conflict was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. They weren't just fighting a war, they were rewriting the entire concept of conflict. The world watched as humanity transformed from a seemingly insignificant planet to the most feared civilization in the galaxy. Cities that once focused on local problems now became centers of interstellar strategy and technological innovation. Dr. Yuna Lee's research facility had become the most important location on Earth. What started as a small research project was now the epicenter of a global technological revolution. Quantum adaptive battle networks spread like an intelligent web across human territories, creating a system of defense and communication unlike anything previously imagined. Military academies rewrote their entire training protocols. The old methods of warfare seemed prehistoric compared to the new computational approach. Students now trained with AI systems that could simulate millions of conflict scenarios in milliseconds. Traditional military leadership was replaced by a new breed of strategic thinkers who understood that war was fundamentally a computational problem. Captain Hoon Park stood before a global conference, explaining how human technology had completely transformed galactic dynamics. His presentation wasn't a boastful speech, but a clinical explanation of technological superiority. The quantum encrypted communication networks had become humanity's most powerful weapon. Universities around the world began developing specialized programs focused on interstellar strategy. Young scientists and military strategists saw unprecedented opportunities. The gap between human technological capabilities and alien civilizations was growing exponentially with each passing month. Hyun Choi developed training simulations that could predict and counter potential alien attack strategies with remarkable accuracy. These weren't simple computer games. They were sophisticated systems that could understand complex military dynamics at a level never seen before. The global economy shifted dramatically. Resources that were once considered valuable became secondary to computational and strategic research. Countries that could develop advanced AI and quantum communication technologies became the new global powers. Traditional economic markers became irrelevant. Manufacturing changed completely. Factories now produced advanced computational systems and quantum adaptive technologies instead of traditional machinery. Every industrial process became an opportunity for strategic innovation. Alien civilizations watched in growing concern. Humanity was transforming not just its military capabilities, but its entire approach to technological development. Each breakthrough seemed to come faster than the previous one, creating a momentum that was impossible to stop. Communication networks between human territories became so advanced that they functioned almost like a collective intelligence. Information moved faster than any biological system could comprehend. Strategic decisions that would have taken months now happened in seconds. Admiral J. Kim explained to diplomatic representatives that humanity wasn't just developing technology. They were creating a new form of collective intelligence. The quantum networks were becoming something more than simple communication systems. They were evolving into a living, thinking system. Research facilities around the world worked on projects that seemed like science fiction to previous generations, adaptive AI systems that could learn and predict with unprecedented accuracy, quantum communication networks that could transmit information across vast distances instantaneously. The transformation wasn't just technological. Human society was changing. People understood that they were part of something larger, a civilization that was redefining its place in the universe. The old divisions of nationality and culture were being replaced by a more unified vision of human potential. Space exploration programs expanded rapidly. Where previous generations had seen space as a distant frontier, now humans saw it as a computational problem to be solved. Each mission was an opportunity to gather data, to learn, to expand human understanding. The Galactic Confederation watched, with growing concern. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored or controlled. They had become something entirely new, a civilization that could think faster, adapt quicker, and innovate more rapidly than any known species. Educational systems were completely redesigned. Children now learned computational thinking from their earliest years. Strategic analysis became as important as traditional academic subjects. The entire approach to human development was being reimagined. As the transformation continued, one thing became clear: Humanity was no longer just participating in the galactic community. They were redefining what it meant to be an advanced civilization. The universe was about to change forever, and humanity was leading the way. The massive conference chamber felt heavy with tension. Representatives from the Galactic Confederation approached the human delegation not as conquerors but as supplicants. Captain Hoon Park sat at the center, his calm demeanor revealing nothing of the complex strategy behind this moment. Dr. Yuna Lee had prepared extensively for these negotiations. The quantum adaptive communication systems were running multiple scenario predictions simultaneously, ensuring that every potential diplomatic outcome was calculated and understood before a single word was spoken. The alien representatives looked defeated. Their once proud civilization had been systematically dismantled not through military might, but through computational precision and psychological strategic planning. They understood now that humanity represented something entirely different from any civilization they had encountered. "We request terms of cooperation," the lead alien diplomat stated, his translation device struggling to capture the nuanced emotions behind the words. Admiral J. Kim listened carefully. Each word was being analyzed by advanced AI systems that could detect the slightest deviation in communication patterns. The negotiation wasn't just a conversation, it was a complex computational process. The terms were simple, but revolutionary. Humanity wasn't seeking total conquest. They wanted something far more valuable: technological exchange, mutual understanding, and a complete restructuring of galactic communication protocols. Hyun Choi monitored the communication networks, ensuring that every transmission was secure and strategically positioned. The negotiation was happening on multiple levels: the verbal conversation, the quantum encrypted background communications, and the psychological strategic layers. The alien civilization was being offered something unprecedented: a chance to become part of a new galactic framework where intelligence and adaptability were the primary currencies of power. They would have to completely reimagine their social and technological structures. Previous galactic powers had relied on military strength and territorial control. Humanity was introducing a new paradigm, one where strategic thinking and computational intelligence determined a civilization's value. It was a fundamental shift in how galactic relationships would be understood. Each human representative understood the magnitude of this moment. They weren't just negotiating for Earth. They were establishing a new model of interstellar cooperation that would reshape entire civilizations. The quantum adaptive systems running in the background were doing more than just supporting the negotiations. They were actively learning, processing, and predicting potential outcomes with mathematical precision. Every second of the conversation was a data point, a potential pathway to understanding. The alien representatives began to realize that humanity wasn't just another species to be categorized or controlled. They were a fundamentally different type of intelligence, one that could think, adapt, and strategize at levels never before seen. Detailed exchange protocols were drafted. Technology sharing, communication network integration, and strategic cooperation became the primary focus. The old models of territorial conquest were being replaced by a more complex understanding of interstellar relationships. Dr. Lee's adaptive AI systems were running millions of potential scenario predictions during the negotiations. Each potential response was analyzed, each potential outcome calculated with unprecedented accuracy. The negotiation was becoming a living, breathing, computational process. The conference lasted 3 standard galactic days. But in reality, more communication happened in those 3 days than in the previous 100 years of galactic interactions. Humanity was rewriting the rules of diplomatic engagement. When the negotiations concluded, the result wasn't a traditional treaty. It was a complex computational agreement that would serve as a blueprint for future interstellar interactions. The Galactic Confederation was being fundamentally restructured. Captain Park's final statement captured the essence of the moment. "We are not here to conquer, we are here to evolve." The universe watched and listened. Humanity had done something unprecedented. They had transformed a potential conflict into an opportunity for collective growth and understanding. As the alien representatives prepared to return to their territories, one thing became abundantly clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. The galaxy had a new model of interaction, and humanity was leading the way.